All right, we're gonna get started because this is a short session and hopefully Ashley will join us shortly. Welcome. This is the DC Advisory Neighborhood Commission's Vision Zero Caucus. I will pass it now to our moderator, Josh, and he will get things started. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you to WABA for hosting such an important event. And thanks to my fellow commissioners for taking time out of your day to join us. I know it's hard given how much of your life probably is taken over by ANC stuff already, so appreciate your time. I'm excited to be joined by several wonderful commissions for this panel from the Vision Zero Caucus. The Vision Zero Caucus is a network of commissioners who champion and advocate for transportation safety issues, and I'm one of the co-chairs of the caucus, along with Commissioner Colleen Costello from ANC 5B05. For those who don't know, advisory neighborhood commissions are nonpartisan neighborhood bodies made up of locally elected officials called advisory neighborhood commissioners. And we are the most local elected official representing around 2,000 people here in DC and work to be a voice for the neighborhood with the district government. And then just a quick note, Sarah, I do see Ashley or Commissioner Ruff in the attendee list. So if you want to promote her to panelist, then we can go ahead and see her as well. So we'll just do a quick round of introductions from those of us that are here, and I'll have some questions, and then we'll have time for questions from the audience. So we'll go ahead and get started with Commissioner Ruff. Do you want to just give a quick introduction, your name, your ANC, what you're doing here?
So hello everybody, I'm Commissioner Ruff. I am from 7F02, that is in Ward 7. I'm off of the Minnesota Avenue corridor. And so I'm just here supporting and also here to learn as well. But everybody knows I am for bike lanes. So, and I'm not apologetic for it. I need, for my community to definitely know that we need these bike lanes. We are the majority that ride the bikes over here. And we need the lanes to actually keep our drivers safe, number one, because we don't want them hitting the kids as they're riding the bikes or anything. But I think, like I've always said before, the kids are my major majority here of why I think we need bike lanes. So thank you.
Thank you, for Commissioner Ruff. Commissioner Kapur?
Vijay Kapur, ANC Commissioner from 5C07. My district contains Northern Langdon, Langdon Elementary, Langdon Park, and Woodridge Library, and a good amount, about a mile of the Rhode Island Avenue corridor. And I am an advocate for more homes and fewer cars.
Thank you. Commissioner Palmer.
Thank you. Erin Palmer, I'm the commissioner for single member district 4B02, which is Tacoma. And I'm very happy to be here. Josh, you're correct that ANC spend too much time doing ANC work. But one of the perks is seeing these lovely faces and wonderful advocacy from great commissioners. So thank you.
And lastly, I am Josh Jacobson. I represent ANC 1E06. ANC 1E is centered around Georgia Avenue and Lower Georgia Avenue, I should say, and I represent a portion of Pleasant Plains. So thanks everyone for being here today, especially those in the audience. First question for the group. This year's summit theme is community engagement and safe streets. How do you and your residents work together for safe streets? Commissioner Palmer, do you want to go first? We'll go reverse order.
Sure. One of the things that I often talk about is that I do a lot of door knocking and a lot of community engagement in various forms. And the number one thing that I hear about is people who want cars to slow down. You can get into details and have conversations and even arguments about how you do that, but that is by far the number one thing I hear from residents when I talk to them. And what I try and do is to both empower residents by uplifting their voices, but also having them create some of the noise around how much they care about traffic safety and traffic safety infrastructure. While on the ANC level, I work to find pressure points and the people who are responsive. So it's a delicate dance, but I think oftentimes as ANCs, we sometimes get stuck in doing emails and resolutions, and it is important to continue to elevate the resident voices and make them feel like they're part of the solution, which they are.
Thank you, Commissioner Palmer. Commissioner Kapur?
Yeah, so like Commissioner Palmer, a lot of what I hear revolves around traffic safety. And one thing I do to try to facilitate movement forward, besides writing out every thought I can have and trying to organize things for people so that they can catch up on information. Whenever I get emails, multiple emails from the same area of my SMD, I then send an intro email to like 3 or 4 people at a time, trying to get them together and see if they can kind of take some of the, I'll be there to nudge them along and to give them guidance, but if they can kind of run off and do some of their own work, it can move the needle a lot farther than I can personally do, because like we discussed, ANC commissioners have limited capacity. And so as a result, we have a group that's taking ownership of Langdon Park, and they're also advocating for 20th Street improvements around Langdon Park. And we have a group called Friends of South Dakota Ave that started to find each other without me, but then I was able to, I think I came up with a name. I gave them a couple ways forward to focus on, and as a result of their testimony and their advocacy, we did secure some dedicated funding for South Dakota Ave in the fiscal year 24 budget. So anecdotal evidence that this seems to be working.
Thank you for that. And Commissioner Ruff, her phone died, so she is working on getting back on. So I'll go ahead and answer the question. One of my biggest wins so far has been getting speed bumps, or I guess speed tables, along a portion of 9th Street, which is next to Banneker Park. There's Banneker Park there. There's a School Without Walls, Francis Stephen, which is a elementary to middle school, and a lot of that has come from residents reaching out to DDOT, submitting through in one request. And so what I see my role as is helping uplift those residents when they do have issues come up, helping guide them to how to submit these requests, and then eventually, writing a resolution just to remind DDOT that this is something that the ANC cares about and we want you to take action on. And I got a text that Ashley is back, but I do not see her in the audience yet.
I'm here.
There we go. Commissioner Ruff, we were just talking about how you and your residents work together for safe streets. Anything you want to talk about there?
So that is one of the reasons why we're having the Peace Jam on the 24th, is to show our residents how to address different situations as far as safety wise. And we all know that there's plenty of ideas on how to be safe throughout the city, but as far as with reporting and things like that, I show them how to utilize 311. I'm very open in email and with trying to connect them to different resources in the city. Another thing is we definitely try to stay in contact with DDOT and DPW very heavy. Because I think that right now, like I said before, when I first joined on, we're having an issue that we don't have bicycle lanes here, and we don't have adequate lighting services. Well, traffic signals for pedestrian traffic or for bicycle traffic. So those are just a few things that we are looking at that are very imperative to have a conversation with our local leaders and organizations.
Thank you. And a follow-up question to all this. I know we were just talking about, some of the challenges in engaging DDOT, having to teach residents how to use 311 so they can get through to DDOT. If you could wave a magic wand and have DDOT make any change that you suggest, what would that 1 or 2 or 3 suggestions be? Or if you have a book and you want to self-publish it, let me know. We'll go with Commissioner Kapur.
So obviously this is a big open-ended question, and there are many things that in a given moment that that DDOT is putting out there that I would try to wave a magic wand to change. But if I had to pick one, it's that I think DDOT maybe they don't talk about it enough, but they do acknowledge that we need a high policy priority to be on reducing vehicle miles and reducing vehicle trips. But it doesn't seem to convey to the need to reduce or expect the reduction in volume, in vehicle volume on any given roadway. And that ends up being the reason why a lot of things can't get done. They will model existing vehicle volume and then say that the traffic congestion will be too bad, or they'll use some euphemism like roadway operations will be affected. So I think it's betting against ourselves. If we're reducing vehicle miles and reducing vehicle trips, we're also allowing for mode share, mode change, route change, time change to reduce our vehicle volumes. And so we should be able to do things that may not work for the existing vehicle volumes, but expect that reduced demand will take over, and we can be successful if we just do the things we know need to be done for safety.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. If you look at the collapse of that portion of I-95 in Philadelphia recently, I think hard to draw too many conclusions just yet, but from what I'm seeing on the ground reporting is traffic hasn't really changed that substantially. People find other ways to get places, and it doesn't necessarily, like, removing a lane of traffic doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to cause a cataclysm or anything like that. Commissioner Palmer, did you want to go next?
Thank you. I guess I have a million things, and if people want ideas for ways that ANCs have weighed in, you should look at the ANC resolution portal. But the top three things that come to my mind that I think are really important is a strategy for hardening traffic safety infrastructure and addressing like mid-range projects. So we see all these flex posts and the pedestrian crossing signs and these things that are temporary and get knocked down. And there's very little investment and planning around hardening those projects, which is really the thing that I think we need. I think there's a challenge with changing or inconsistent DDOT practices and procedures, and that creates a lot of equity issues. And it's why you see speed humps in certain places where they say that they will not install speed humps and things of that nature. And finally, one of the larger visionary challenges that we face is that DDOT seems to plan around the current situations and structures, and we should be planning around what we want in the future. So we often just on a micro level will ask for traffic calming when we know a development is coming in. And DDOT will say, well, we don't have the traffic volumes for this. And we'll have to say to them, we know that that's coming. So think about what it will look like in 5 years and develop your traffic calming around that.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that point. That's where a lot of my emphasis is. And if I had one big ask for DDOT, it would be finding ways that we can more proactively develop solutions and not wait for some big accident to occur or for a loss of life before we realize, oh, it's actually time to put in some hardening in this particular intersection or introduce speed bumps. I think Commissioner Kapur had an unfortunate experience with that in his SMD. So definitely something that is top of mind for me. And then likely last one for me. Can you talk a little bit about the biggest challenges with street safety in your neighborhood? I'm glad that we have commissioners from 4 different wards on the panel, and would love to hear just different challenges that you all are facing. And maybe Commissioner Ruff, do you want to go first?
I was getting ready to ask you too. Could you repeat that one more time? I started breaking up a minute. You said, what is the biggest
challenge with street safety in your neighborhood? I know you talked a little bit about bike lanes, and maybe you fully answered this question with your intro, but I'd love to hear if there's anything else that you want to flag for your area.
I think the biggest challenge is the pedestrian, the foot traffic here. I've put in the TSL 2.0 new system. I may have said it wrong. I'm a new commissioner. Don't charge it to my heart, just charge it to my head. But we have been asking for a traffic signal light to turn left into the rec center off of East Capitol. We have asked numerous of our councilmen and women that are in prison to kind of work with DDOT and make those decisions with input from the community. And I feel like sometimes the great weight that we all carry in the community is being ignored. And it's beginning to become a pet peeve, because we have a lot of children that walk around here. We have a lot of dog walkers. We have a lot of grandmas and grandpas. And I just feel like it's a community of different people that are asking for the same thing. And we are totally being ignored here in Ward 7, which carries the highest traffic rate throughout the city before you get to Commissioner Palmer's area. Also, like I said, again, this is the highest bicyclist area besides before you get to H Street and downtown. You know, no, there's no bike lane here, but it's a majority here. Everyone is basically on foot or on bike. And it's ridiculous that we have this high traffic area and we can't get calming or anything. So I think that would be one of my biggest pet peeves.
Thank you, Commissioner Ruff. Commissioner Palmer.
Yeah, this is a tough question because there are so many challenges. And I think one of the kind of bird's eye things that stands out to me is that it's just the incredible level of persistence that you need for anything. It just takes emails and resolutions and testimony and phone calls for years to get some very basic stuff put in, and it's exhausting. And if you don't do that, it's like they're looking for an excuse to just drop stuff. And that ties to another challenge, which is that, so for instance, I'm in my 5th year of being a commissioner. And at this point, we have asked for traffic calming and traffic safety infrastructure for every part of my SMD in some way or another. So like, I've flagged all the issues, I've flagged what I think the solutions are, and I feel like there's nothing left for me to do from the commissioner level other than to keep poking them and saying, why aren't you doing anything here? So it's a system issue of just having to be on them all the time, I think, is the biggest challenge.
Yeah, definitely feel that already, even though it's only my 1st year. Commissioner Kapur.
Yeah, so you mentioned that I had a fatality, a roadway fatality in my district, in an area where I had been requesting for many years traffic safety mitigations to be installed. So I guess I'll go ahead and say that this is probably one of the biggest issues. I have 2 arterials, so arterial safety and the corridor wide work on those arterials is also top of mind, but I'll focus on 20th Street. So Andy Jose Carino, 22-year-old from Severna Park, Maryland, reached speeds of probably close to 90 miles per hour, maybe 100. I think the back of napkin put it somewhere between 87 and 109 miles per hour. On 20th Street, in the stretch of 20th Street where it bisects Langdon Park. So he would have started collecting that speed around Langdon Elementary. And I quickly, this basically happened in my backyard. It was February 3rd, 11:40 p.m. He crashed his car into a row of 3 parked cars, pushing the first onto the sidewalk against a retaining wall back 20 feet, causing significant damage to the corner of the one behind it, and then small amount of damage to the one behind that one. And he died on site. The DC Fire and EMS had to extract him from his vehicle. So I was able to collect from neighbors some camera footage from security cameras. I started flagging the nearby neighbors the need to collect that footage before it rolled off. I strategically put that on the internet with people's permission. I met with the family and I talked about my advocacy. I testified before the Transportation and the Council Committee on Transportation and Environment specifically about this, just telling the story. And so like that amount of trying to get every single receipt. I had a whole list of TSIs that I had personally put in for that exact stretch of roadway that I was able to produce. And I put that in my council testimony as well. And I put that on the internet. And all of that got me, as far as I can tell, and who knows, maybe it would have happened without anything. But all of that got me about 4 or 5 of my TSIs that were still actively in the pool elevated mid-cycle to be active investigations, right? Because we have a traffic safety input algorithm that elevates a certain number of traffic safety investigations per quarter. And so mid fiscal year 23, quarter two, about 4 or 5 of these TSIs got elevated. And I have instructions for anybody who asks me about this, about, you know, emailing the community liaison for Ward 5 and a few other Division 0 staffers at DDOT, just to occasionally prod, but I'm supposed to wait for DDOT's objective measurements to kick in and for them to decide to do certain things. I have to go and find examples of the things that I know DDOT does in other places that might be done for the crosswalk that connects the two halves of Langdon Park in the middle of this section where he gained this speed, and try to get people to take photos that I've taken of those mitigations and send them along so that there's some specificity in the asks, because I feel like there's not enough specificity and enough specificity and attainability with a nexus of it actually making an impact. Then it's probably a waste of everyone's time. So I think like that kind of pinpointing and that level of stacking the deck in favor of a very specific ask, it's exhausting, like Commissioner Palmer said, and it requires just a lot of work.
I appreciate that, Commissioner Kapur, and I think it ties back nicely to something that Commissioner Ruff mentioned earlier, that this isn't all about safety for people that are using bikes or scooters or walking. Like, this also impacts driver safety, and we want to do what we can to save as many lives as possible.
Yeah, and I'll note that even though this was a person that was presumably making a willful decision to do something unsafe, to some extent, even he is a victim of our culture and our incapacity to build streets to be safer for any of the reasons why somebody may operate a car unsafely.
Yeah. I'm gonna go ahead and move to audience questions, and we'll try to just do a round robin to try to get through all of them. So if you are in the audience and have a question, please put it in the Q&A and we'll try to get to that. I will start first with Commissioner Ruff. Do you want to talk a little bit about how ordinary residents can help with these efforts to improve street safety?
Yes, I feel like there are multiple ways. And so just kind of piggybacking on you guys' conversation 2 seconds ago, when I mean about the safety of drivers, I mean about drivers being accountable, you know, making sure that, and I drive, I bike, I walk, I use all forms of transportation, but I also do work for Uber in my spare time. And sometimes I'm like, well, I wish there was a bike lane here. I wish there was a division here, you know, some type of safety to where I feel okay to drive alongside of a biker, and being a biker myself. I think that as far as coming from our residents, we need to continue to keep writing our elected officials. That's including myself, write me all the time. That we need to hold DDOT accountable. We need to be involved in all plans at all times, because we are the residents that live here. We are the residents that navigate any type of transportation here, the system here in the city. And so we should know what's going on. We should always have input. I think also too, 311 is a very important tool. And we need to start letting people know that if 311 is not answering your request, hit them on Twitter. They will respond back, because nobody wants to be embarrassed. And I think that also we need to start educating our community members on looking at when DDOT puts in a request. I mean, when we put in a request and DDOT's response is something generic, say like if you call about mice or rats here in the city, they'll put, oh, 12 boroughs, such and such, but it'll be repeated. That means that they didn't come out, or that they looked at it and they thought, oh, I can't do this job, or whatever the case is. We need to stay on top of them about that. We need to call down there and say, hey, this wasn't looked at, you know, this was just a generic message. How can we resolve this situation? So again, it's just communication and networking, like I always say. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Ruff. And then a question for Commissioner Palmer. To what extent are you as a commissioner committed to equity, recognizing that Ward 7s and 8 are disproportionately affected by severe and fatal crashes? What if that means that your SMD doesn't get focus, but Commissioner Ruff's does?
Yeah, I very much appreciate that question, and I'm glad that I got that one. It is so easy as commissioners to be focused on a very local, block by block, micro level on our own single member districts. That's what the role is. And it is designed that way in part to keep us from collaborating and working together to make things better citywide. And what's interesting is the oath of advisory neighborhood commissioners is to the city as a whole. So we owe our considerations about everything, including traffic safety infrastructure, to the whole city. And I'm especially appreciative of efforts to bring us all together so we can have a better understanding of that, including the WABA Vision Zero Caucus, including things that seem as menial as the resolution portal, which shows you what's going on in other commissions. And the more we are talking to each other, the more we are in each other's districts, seeing and experiencing what the challenges are, the better we can understand that and advocate for each other. One thing I really try to do is to share the things that I'm working on with other commissioners to the extent that that's helpful to them, to create like a body of work that is helpful in advocating for traffic safety infrastructure across the city. And people really misuse the word equity. And when they talk about it, it's like equity is inequality, that everything's flat. And that is not what we're talking about. Equity means that we would be investing more in Ward 7, 8, and 5 as transit deserts, as places with really poor and insufficient traffic safety infrastructure. And we really do need to do that. And I'm hopeful that ANCs can continue to work together to advocate for that in a stronger way. And that takes also concerted effort to bring in the most impacted voices into the groups that are collaborating across the city, which is something that I think we need to continue to work on.
All right, thank you so much, Commissioner Palmer. And we only have about 2 minutes left. So Commissioner Kapur, do you have any closing thoughts? The harder question to give you, but
well, I can really quickly answer the 2 remaining questions, which is pedestrian safety issues, or the PAC. So the PAC, the BAC, and the multimodal, the MAC. These are certainly bodies that we should try to work with a little bit more. My interactions with them have mostly been on the small groups that we're on for big projects like the Bladensburg Road Safety Study. But I'd love to engage more with them. For council members, the chairperson could use more nudging on safer streets for everybody. And that's all I got. Sorry.
thank you. Just want to say thanks again for everyone who is in the audience for listening to us, and thanks again to Commissioners Ruff, Kapur, and Palmer for joining me on this discussion. And also thanks again to WABA for hosting this. And I'll drop just one other thing in the chat. If you haven't already, recommend reaching out to your ANC. Easiest resource to do that is through openanc.org. There's a nice interactive map. You can type in your address and find who your ANC is. And if you want, if you're looking for other ways to get involved, or you're nervous about talking to your commissioner for the first time and you want to chat to someone who you have now heard talk, you're more than welcome to reach out to me. And I dropped my email in the chat. It's 1e06@anc.dc.gov.